Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome back to Vicky 3, episode 34. Before we continue on with our US playthrough, I just want to take a moment and appreciate how beautiful the map is. When you really zoom in and get a good look at things, it's just tremendous what they have going on here. And then, of course, you have a live map that grows and develops as time goes on. A couple things I want to kind of acknowledge on the map here, and just the history teacher in me has to get this one out there. As you can see the Appalachians and kind of how they fall, but the curious thing for me is what stands out border wise within the states. You can see for the most part the border is within the Appalachians itself, state to state for the most part. Pennsylvania is an obvious exception to that, but you can see how Vermont is quite mountainous as you go through. But in a lot of cases, Massachusetts shows this a little more clearly than some of the other states, that the border is not necessarily in the middle or along the peaks of the Appalachians. It's along the western edge. And the reason for that is largely due to the early founding of the nation and where the colonies were. The colonies stretched to the mountains, and as new territories kind of formed, they took the territory beyond the mountains. So not over the peak or through the pass or whatever, it was what was beyond. And then the one exception to all of this that stands out, but then the neat geographic reference here, is the Civil War. Okay, so Virginia is one of the exceptions to the rule. It goes well beyond the Appalachians. You can see the former border for Virginia is the Ohio River. With the border there, Virginia goes well beyond even Virginia itself. Now this is West Virginia. The game, I understand that there's limitations. There's only so much they can do. When it starts out, you've got your 50 states. Well, you don't have your 50 states, but you have the breakdown of the states already set up, future breakdown. So you have all of these, territories that existed at the time, like say Nebraska, Kansas. The Nebraska-Kansas Act, this was all one territory, not two separate states. So it was split up eventually. And likewise, they already have West Virginia split from Virginia. At the beginning of the game, West Virginia is not a separate state. It's just Virginia. And the reason why we don't have East Virginia and West Virginia, or one could argue North Virginia and South Virginia, the reason why we have a West Virginia is that when the Civil War occurred, long story short, very simplified here, but when the Civil War occurred and secession was happening and Virginia voted to secede from the Union, well, the majority voted to secede from the Union, but barely. But then when you look at the breakdown county by county, the overwhelming population here voted to secede. And outside of this pocket down here, everything west, but also along the river here, everything west of the Appalachians voted not to. They wanted to stay in the Union. And now you can kind of see why. Ultimately, West Virginia, that area, even though the whole state technically seceded, that area was in rebellion of the rebellion, and eventually, in the early phase of the war, was admitted as a new state and has stayed one ever since. And the divide, the Appalachian divide, being on the west side, even though technically, you look at it, it's pretty much north of the other Virginia, but they don't call it North Virginia because they are the west side of the Appalachians, and that's where you get West Virginia from. And then following the war, when the country was reunited, West Virginia remained a separate state and has been ever since. Let's get back to the playthrough, though. So checking back in where we are, what we have done, the United States, the internal stuff is Done. It's taken care of. Now, the downside here is we're still lacking two major areas in southwestern and northwestern United States are still under the control of Great Britain and Mexico. We've already beaten Mexico in one war, and they are antagonistic, and we no longer have, though they do have an alliance with Guatemala, they no longer have something to stop us. We could easily go after, like, say, Utah. And from the looks of things, Mexico, Guatemala, Mosquito would be the opposition, and they would be easily defeated. What we need to watch out for, though, is that Great Britain, Russia, and the Hudson's Bay Company could become involved. So let's check on those, because in the near future I'd like to do something. We are still infamous, as we have made other plays. We'll check in on those in a moment, and we want to wait a couple years to have a go. 1862 is not bad, and we want to go pretty aggressive on the stance at that time. So in the short term, we are already improving relations with Russia, and they like us a fair bit. The Hudson's Bay Company are antagonistic, neutral. Okay, fine, whatever. Are they still... Yes. Great Britain is still the dominion over them. But let's see if we can keep them out. And more importantly, Great Britain, belligerent towards us. And that is the reason to not do something right now. Long term, I don't mind having Great Britain as an enemy, as they aren't the strongest military out there. But right now, neither are we. We still only have 64 battalions. They're fairly strong as battalions. We have a projection over 500. But we have a long ways to go yet to be mighty. Now, the reason why we have a lot of infamy is, well, we started with Central America, and we've conquered some land here, taking it under our control. So Panama Canal can be a thing in the near future, as we already have the territory we need. But then, more recently, we've been aggressive down here at the southern tip of South America, and we have little pockets, Selknam and Chile, who are belligerent towards us because, of course, we just took some land from them. But this recent acquisition is why we have some infamy right now. We don't want to go too aggressive. We don't want to make too many enemies. Reason 4 is the military is not that strong yet. We still want to continue building up the military in the short term and operate with low levels of infamy, but grow continually as we can along the way. We've also been very aggressive through Oceania. We already have Hawaii. That was actually our most recent acquisition, I believe. We have the full South Island of New Zealand and just a little piece of the North Island, New South Wales. We're going to want to take that off of them, the United Tribes, but again, infamy. We need to wait. We also have southwest tip of the American Western Australia, and then I think we are going to start colonizing in Indonesia. I think we just started with that, and we are just going to get started here in Western Africa. So colonization efforts have now moved on to new territories. And let's go ahead and get back into the playthrough. As of right now, we've already passed a lot of the laws that we were targeting. Construction isn't amazing, but it's good. But our balance is really good. And we've got a good, strong economy. We're up to 60% literacy rate. Standard of living is decreasing as we bring in new territories that aren't fully colonized, don't have big economies, don't have as much access to things as we have in other areas. That's what's kind of hurting our standard of living. Otherwise, the rapid economy growth should be boosting it, as we are at least occasionally committing some of that growth towards standard of living options. See, you can see here, the eastern half of the United States, the pre-existing states, are looking pretty good. The new western ones, yeah, not great. Central America actually is looking pretty okay. South America, the new area, not so good. part of it's okay, but again, that's more mixed. Where the eastern half of the United States is looking a bit better, kind of everything east of the Mississippi. Big transition to do, and to do it immediately would come at a cost. So I'm not going to quite do it immediately, but we are going to do this soon because technically we can afford it already. We have a balance of 51,000 to the good. The cost to increase our construction from the second tier to the third tier, it's 35,000. I mean that's a big cost. And again, we have that covered right now, and it's plus 130 construction. Plus 130. But I do have a few things kind of in the queue right now, and I don't want to have to reorder the queue to start addressing the departments that are going to change rapidly. You can see glass would have a massive cost increase. We don't want that. Iron would be fine, so actually it would be good for iron, but explosives are already top notch, so actually that's cost that wouldn't be impacted. Tools price would go up on tools a fair bit, but wouldn't necessarily be out of control. But steel already is a bit out of control, so I think glass and steel need to get addressed right as we do it. And I want this queue to be a little bit shorter. But once we shorten this queue down, I'm going to go ahead and turn it up. And meanwhile, the latest election is in. The People's Party have a 3-to-1 vote. People's Party being the rural folk. Right now, I don't think there's much that we can pass that would be useful. Can't change anything in the government right now, but what I can do is I can turn up home affairs to level 2, which is going to hurt revolution progression speed. It's going to hurt the radicals. It's going to improve the loyalists. That's a good trade-off for us. We don't have a lot of spare bureaucracy, so we are going to need to kind of address that here with time. Weekly, the economy is getting stronger. We're up to 55,000 now, and I've already queued up Miss Katia. Okay. Does this break their alliance? Could this break their alliance? Could this, with them being distracted? But they're already 94% mobilized. They could be distracted enough, but this is looking like one of those, it's going to be simple, it's going to be quick, it's going to be over with in an instant. Does not seem like the path, the timing that we need. We want Great Britain to be in a larger war, and that becomes a very good distracting time to do something. Well, anyway, I have 10 things queued up that are going to involve steel and glass to offset the construction increase, which means I'm down to 17 other items, now 16 other items, actually, plus 5. So there's still 20 left. I'm not going to wait for us to get all the way down to those 10 things and addressing them directly, because we're going to have increased construction by a pretty wide margin. It's supposed to be, what, plus 130? I mean, it's going to be at 200. We're going to be constructing things very fast once that happens. Therefore, I think all I need to do is get this down to like plus 20, and then we're going to go ahead and turn it up, because if it's 35,000, we're still going to have a positive balance anyway, even without that stuff. Yeah, latest estimate is minus 37,000, and we are down to plus 20, so let's do it. We're turning it up. Short-term balance is actually still 40,000, and we're at 143 now. I think the market change, the monthly price report, it's going to take a little time to go through, but we are down to 14 on the infamy, so we can just about handle our next war. But there you go, the impact has been larger than expected, and we have a negative balance as the shortfall in various economies. Things are still trying to settle for now. But look how fast we are getting through everything. I mean, we're already down to the steel and glass works. It took a couple weeks. So checking in on the market, it looks like steel. Steel is a huge need, but of course we have 5 right now. We have 5 that are being constructed. We are going to double what we have, which is enough to offset that. So we're going to be okay there. And so this price, that's going to be temporary. That's going to come down quite soon. Glass, with 5 being created, I think that's going to just about cover that off as well. It looks like transportation could be a big need. That's costing us a fair bit. So let's go ahead and invest a little bit here, and then clothing. We have another chance to turn up our military to a higher level. Shrapnel artillery is available to us. It's going to cost 7,000, and that is a cost up front, but I know our balance is going to be just fine here in the near future. Our army power projection is going to go plus 355 for turning that one up. By the way, I also just made some new ones. So we've gone from 64 up to 71 units now, and that military is getting stronger and stronger all the time. We're up to 622, and it is going to be climbing as that distribution gets out there. With availability, I decided to get after colonization. It looks like somebody is starting to get active in here. Let's see who it is before we do anything. Austrian Sakhalin. So Austria is beginning to colonize in Japan. So we do have a competitor. I was thinking it was going to be open still, but we're going to colonize there as well and give ourselves a ticket into Japan. So I've been actively trying to find a region that Great Britain was not involved in, and that was one of the main reasons why I had decided to go after Japan as a region, because Great Britain's got their grip on everything, and as they hate us right now, finding a target that is not already something that they have interest in, as I know that them being belligerent, they would love to have a war against us. At the moment, there is not a single state on our high amount of interest that we have spread out throughout the world. There's not a single state that we could attack without Great Britain intervening. Not one. So the biggest answer really is to get them back on our side. And so we are improving relations, but they are trying to hurt relations. Kind of stuck at the moment. What to do, how to do it. So after all that crazy spending we did and turning the military up to a higher level, we have just about flipped to a positive balance, though it's back to negative at least temporarily here. But in the meantime, how are we now looking? 71 battalions, projection of 575 at the moment. Still not as high as I thought we'd kind of turn it up to, based on the changes we made. So we're gonna have to do more. Flotillas also, yeah, it's 43, but we need to do more there as well. Finally, the People's Party has struggled, and they only got 36% of the vote this time. The Democrats in charge, though, and that's still not a good group. I don't believe there's been a flip. Let's see if there has been. The Evangelicals, Southern Planters, and the Armed Forces are the new group in charge. Let's go ahead and reform the government. And there you go. There's your 79%. Not good, and we're definitely not going to be able to pass anything while this group's in charge either. So there's nothing that they want to pass that we would want to pass, and there's definitely no high support things, and I'm sure the only ones that there would be, like this, outlawed dissent, are not good. Censorship, not good. So right now with Great Britain, they are damaging relations, we are improving relations, and we are stuck on neutral, right at 0. But they are belligerent towards us because they want to conquer some of our states. I'm assuming, we're talking about something up here. They want this territory for themselves, and therefore they remain belligerent towards us, but we can't improve relations to see that relationship change. So I think the only path I really have going forward is be strong enough to beat Great Britain, because they are literally interested anywhere and everywhere that we are targeting. They want to get involved in a war. So slowly but surely, I am working on it. We're up to 71 battalions. Power projection approaching 600, but they are over 1,000 for their power projection with just over 100 units. They also have over 100 flotillas and are quite a bit stronger. So we need a stronger military, and we have that potential of having to beat Great Britain in war head to head to then get after everybody else. We might have to just be the strongest to get after fighting the type of war that we want. So we have recently jumped Prussia to get all the way up to number 5. Great Qing is still ahead of us, but they're actually not in their normal place right near the top of the rankings. Great Britain has also dropped to number 2. Our GDP is catching up to them, just about 25 million behind now, but standard of living, it's still up there. We're about second for standard of living, and our population is closing in on Great Britain's a bit. We are still well behind the top 4, but we are inching closer to them. Before we were very much just 6th, and we're 5th and climbing. I do not know the reason, but Great Britain has seen a massive decline in their military. They are down to just 39 units, and they are turned all the way down. I'm assuming their problem was economic. Their flotillas is also all the way down to 20. So right now, Great Britain is not an obstacle. So we're going to get on with things, and I think we're going to start with getting the northwestern United States. Now, getting after these can be tricky because there's options. They have support. But Russia and Mexico, I don't think are going to be a threat. Russia likes us. British Raj is the one you got to watch out for. What is their strength? Let's find out. How strong is the British Raj these days? Oh, they're strong. They are strong. They are the threat here, as they would most certainly get involved. But if Great Britain's weak and British Raj is coming from a long ways away, and I'm guessing they don't necessarily have a large navy. They don't. Just 20 warships. And we could definitely put some warships, out here to hurt the entry point. Here we go. Let's see what we can do, huh? So we're gonna go after Oregon, Washington, and Idaho to take them away from Great Britain and at least establish our northwestern border. And then while we have a truce with them, we're gonna start going after some others as well. We also have a military that is not the strongest in the world, but it's fairly strong. I've got it growing pretty rapidly right now. Speaking of, power projection up to 853, and we've got probably another 15 or so units on the way here in the next little bit. So we're going to have at least 110 battalions in the near future. So confirm, conquer state. And it is possible to sway Russia. So if we are going to have a war, looks like we can get Russia on our side. And there you go. Russia has offered their support, which means now I feel like we could be more aggressive with this play. Ooh, Hudson's Bay Company has been annexed by Lower Canada, so we could transfer Lower Canada as a subject to us. I like that idea. I very much like that idea. So with war pending, yes, they have one big support vehicle, but we have a big support vehicle in Russia. And that makes them fearful. I have a feeling they're going to back down on the Idaho thing, and we're not even going to see war, which is unfortunate because this is a huge opportunity for us, and I'd love for them to stick it out. What we would gain, Idaho Oregon, Washington, so across the border to here. Lower Canada, which is all of this outside of the two coastal edges, all of it would transfer to be our subject, which we could eventually annex. That's a big gain. And again, they themselves are relatively weak right now. For us, this is a huge opportunity. Like I said, I have a feeling that they are just going to back down and give us Idaho. But that is going to give us a truce, which is going to open up other opportunities like invading Mexico, because Idaho itself is not going to give us a lot of infamy, and therefore getting after Mexico is going to be a strong possibility. And then you turn your attention to, like, say, Honduras, New Granada, and just keep an eye on the infamy until things time out with Great Britain, and then we'll see if they've gotten stronger yet or not. In the meantime, though, that is going to do it for this episode. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.